Hi, everyone, and welcome. If you're tuning in on demand, I want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for choosing to invest your time, your energy, and your presence into this experience. My name is Connie Cay-Santos, founder and of K7 Inc. and Her Seat at the Table. It was truly an honor to co-create this experience alongside Women to Watch for International Women's Day. This experience was designed with intention, not just to inspire, but to create space for reflection, connection, and action. Before we begin, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the incredible voices who have helped shape the conversations. You'll be guided through this part of this journey by Devin, who helped ground the experience and set the tone for what it means to really show up with purpose. And we have Courtney Stanley reminding us of the power of our voice, our confidence, and the importance of owning the space we walk in, even when it's uncomfortable. Laura Armstrong shared a powerful perspective on reclaiming our power, reframing boundaries not as a limitation, but as a positive and necessary expression of self-respect, clarity, and leadership. And we have Donnie Mangos brought forward important insights on wealth management and future-proofing our financial well-being, challenging us to think intentionally about the legacy we're building and the decisions we make today. Together, these voices create a shared experience rooted in both giving and gaining, because leadership is not just a one-way exchange. It is a continuous cycle of contribution, learning, and elevation. As we move through the sessions, I invite you to be present. Take notes, reflect, pause when you need to, or rewind as well because you are on demand. And most importantly, ask yourself, what is the one thing you can take away from this experience and turn it into action? Because the true power of this space is not just what you hear, but it is what we choose to do next. Thank you for being here. And I hope this experience continues to support you in honoring your journey, stepping into your power, and building meaningful connections along the way. And if you notice, each of the speakers on the side will have a QR code. Even if you're on demand, feel free to scan those QR codes and connect with each of the speakers. All right, my friends, we'll pass it over to Devin to start guiding the experience. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Connie, for the warm welcome. And hello, everyone, and welcome. Again, my name is Devin Montgomery Pasha, and I'm beyond honored to be our host and guide for this evening or afternoon's celebration of women of Give to Gain, International Women's Day and Women's History Month. I will say, as a graduate of a women's college, I love seeing strong women come together and our allies to lift each other up. So I am delighted, and I want to give a special shout out to Her Seat at the Table and the Women to Watch group for always promoting and supporting opportunities like this to continue to learn and lift each other up. Before I get into a little bit more welcome, one quick note of housekeeping is that we have breakout rooms already set for everyone to join us. If you need a break from the conversation or education and want to go into a breakout networking room, you're welcome to do so at any time. Please enjoy this evening as you like it and as it's paced for you. So there is no judgment if you want to pop in and out. We're also going to have an opportunity later in the program for us to go into breakout rooms and connect and network with one another. So there'll be plenty of time to connect in some interactive moments. So, I want to start off with this idea about give to gain and what that means for Women's History Month and International Women's Day. And the truth is give to gain and this idea of a theme isn't about transaction. It's not about earning something. This is really about a philosophy of servant leadership and the idea that when women give generously of our voice, our time, our treasure, our validation and encouragement, that we collectively gain more opportunities, we gain more access and more power. So, the best way to describe this in practice is actually to segue into introducing you all to someone who is very near and dear to my heart and truly embodies the sense of what it means to give to gain. So, please allow me to introduce the one and only Miss Courtney Stanley. Courtney is an award-winning speaker, entrepreneur, global sensation, executive presence coach, and the host of the award-winning Dare to Interrupt podcast. And if you haven't gotten your latest issue of Meetings Today, our newest cover girl. Courtney amplifies everything she touches, the unfiltered stories of influential women across the events and hospitality industry. Courtney challenges the status quo by helping leaders embrace vulnerability, develop deeper self awareness, and lead with authenticity and courage. She's also made history as the youngest person ever elected to the International Board of Directors for MPI and is the co-founder of the award-winning Meetings 2 movement, advancing safer and more inclusive experiences across our industry. More importantly, Courtney Stanley is the woman who helped give me my voice in this industry and without whom I would not be here. So everyone, please help me welcome Courtney Stanley to our program.
Thanks,
Woohoo!
Devin. And thanks for all the emoji love. It's
Yeah,
cute
love
seeing
it.
all the
Loving
little
the
hearts go
emoji
off.
support.
Yeah.
Love, love.
Yeah.
So before we get started, one of the reasons Courtney and I wanted to start this together is I think our story, Courtney really embodies a lot of this idea and a lot of this philosophy of leadership and how when you share, you gain as well. So Courtney, I love to tell the story about how we met, but I think I'll let you kick it off.
Wow. Okay. Sounds good. I know. I feel like you're always the one to share our origin story.
I
Well,
know.
thank you for the kind words and the introduction. I really believe in servant leadership. I actually was a leadership studies minor in university, and we learned about all different styles of leadership and which ones were the most effective and had different outcomes. And I really am a firm believer that servant leadership is so incredibly impactful, and it really does embody the whole give to gain concept and theme around this year's International Women's Day. So I think the way that Devin and I first connected really does help to tell that story. And I can definitely start, Devin, but I would love for you to jump in and fill in the gaps. So
Absolutely.
there was one day, and I was just on my computer doing work, and I received a message from Devin. And Devin and I really didn't know each other personally at this point. I think we'd crossed paths, organically on LinkedIn here and there.
Mhm.
And Devin, I'd love for you to share what that message said.
So I was getting not super new to speaking, but I was offered an opportunity to as an adjunct professor at the university I was working with. And for whatever reason, it's like 48 hours before I'm going to teach my first class. And I know what I'm teaching. I'm confident in teaching events. It's my bread and butter. It's my life force. And I got hit with the most crippling case of imposter syndrome I have ever had. Like I was no voice, absolutely terrified. And the universe just said, this person. So that day that I had it, I was on my LinkedIn and Courtney popped up about something. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to ask her because she's a strong voice. And so I sent her LinkedIn message, say, hi, Courtney, you don't really know me. I follow you on LinkedIn, but I'm having a crippling case of imposter syndrome. Can you give me one or two tips? And it almost immediately, girl must have been on LinkedIn too, because I
When
got
am I
a
not?
message back, like we are, right? But instead of typing me one or two things, Courtney recorded her voice and she sent me a voice note back. And that was such a powerful moment because to hear her voice, the encouragement, it wasn't just a text, to feel the energy behind that message was so meaningful to me, and it really allowed me to shift into an energy and headspace that helped rectify some of that imposter syndrome. And then she was stuck with me.
Yes, yes, in the best way possible. And I think, when people ask me what the most rewarding part of my career has been, my work has been, it's moments like that where people feel like there is some kind of trust that's developed and there's some kind of safe space that's been created. Whether they've seen me from afar or we have had more time to build a relationship and they feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable in that moment and say, hey, I'm struggling. Do you have any space to give me some words of
Yeah.
advice, some wisdom, some encouragement? Those are the moments that I think this give to gain theme really supports. It's
Hmm.
putting everything that you can on the table in an effort to support other people, and then having it come back and recognizing that people see you as a space to be able to be themselves and to be vulnerable. And really, it was the beginning of a beautiful relationship between Devin and I. And lo and behold, I ended up being Devin's speaker coach and
Hmm.
have been incredibly honored to be able to walk side by side with her as she has become a business owner, an entrepreneur, a full-time MC, a speaker, taking the stage as a keynote, and all of these incredible moments. And it's been amazing. And it all started because Devin had the courage to reach out and be vulnerable and ask for help.
And want to echo Courtney. Her voice was always so strong and is strong. And if you don't know Courtney well, I highly recommend to dive a little deeper into her excellence and expertise. But the coaching wasn't just about business. The coaching was a little bit deeper. The coaching was an opportunity to know myself better. And because of Courtney, I actually didn't know how people perceived me in my family, in the industry. And one of the things that was so eye-opening is Courtney helping me see that I had more power than I ever believed I did, and to build this foundation. So to finish the story, a lot of you know that I wear red somewhat often, and that's all because of Courtney. One of the things that she helped me do when I was trying to build a brand was to put out a survey to about 100 people, one of which was, what color do you associate with me? And I'm like, I'm a blue, purple, I'm all lovey, I'm a mellow. And 90, what Courtney, like 95% of the survey was like red, fire, energy, confidence. I was like, wait, what? Do you know me? Absolutely shocked to see that people thought I had presence, that people were felt that I was confident in this powerful person. And that really yielded into making red a brand color to show up with presence and confidence, to feel that I could be myself, but that self has a voice and can be strong and confident in it. So it really became a beautiful foundation to now how I'm perceived. And there was a joke, someone's like, oh, there's that lady in red again. And it stuck a little bit. So I lead into it, and I wear that bold color as a reminder to show up in your confidence. Courtney, I know you're going to share with us for the next couple of minutes a little bit more about that, but I would be remiss if I didn't say a sincere thanks for being strong for you, to give me a voice, to make space for that, to pave the way towards multiple awards that I never would have won without the voice. So, a Women to Watch, a trendsetter, an award-winning speaker, Eventex Top 100, all of that because you trusted my vulnerability and you gave me a foundation to stand up. So, on that note, Courtney, please share some more of your leadership with us so we can continue to learn.
Thanks, Devin. And I want to also just respond to what you said there. You always had a voice. And I think, I never gave you your voice. You always had a voice. And I think what's so interesting about this perception survey that you did, where 95% of the feedback that came from the people that you've mingled with over the years saw you in a certain way, gave you permission to show up the way that you were already showing up. It's just those mental blocks that get in our way of using our voice and of wearing the bold color and of saying the thing and of taking the stage. And so you had it in you all along, sister. I just was the lucky one that got to be able to take the blinders off.
It was awesome. And like I said, now you're stuck with me.
Yeah, it's a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. Well, I want to again thank you all for being here so much today. And I've got a few minutes with you, and we're talking about different themes today. And for me, the the importance of really knowing your voice and owning your voice and using your voice is something that is incredibly and deeply personal to me and has been, a very vital theme throughout my life, in my personal life, in my career. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. And I really want to start with the truth that took me many seasons and chapters of life to fully understand. The moments that I have felt regret the most in my life are not the times that I took up space and things didn't go perfectly. The moments that I have struggled with the most have been the times that I made myself small. And if anything sounds relatable to you, feel free to chat with me in the chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. They were the moments that I decided to put myself on mute. And if we're being honest, I would guess that many of us have done that at some point. We stayed quiet in a meeting when we had a really, really good idea. We let somebody cross a boundary that we knew mattered to us. We held back an opinion, our story, our perspective, because we weren't sure of how it would land. But here's the thing, speaking up, taking up space, being yourself is at the root of all change, internal change and external change. Every movement, every breakthrough, every moment where something finally shifts for the better, somebody decided to use their voice. And yet, for many of us, especially women, taking up space and using our voices can feel incredibly hard. And there are valid reasons for that. And a lot of it starts in our childhood. If you were somebody who was ridiculed, if you were yelled at, if you were dismissed, if you were punished as a child for speaking up, your brain may have learned along the way that it's not safe to use your voice. Maybe you got laughed at for giving the wrong answer in class. Maybe you experienced something stressful or traumatic when you tried to advocate for yourself. And without realizing it, you learned to protect yourself by staying quiet. And there is no shame in that. You were in survival mode and you did exactly what you needed to do for yourself in those moments. You did the best that you could with the tools, with the support, with the life experience that you had at the time. And then there are societal expectations. Women are often taught two conflicting things at the same time. It could be, yes, speak up, we want to hear your voice, but at the same time, don't be too loud. Yes, we want you to have an opinion. Your opinion is welcome here, but don't make waves. Absolutely, we want to see you as a confident version of yourself, but don't be difficult, don't be too aggressive or assertive, and definitely don't be a bitch. So we learn to make ourselves smaller in order to fit into the spaces around us and to be accepted by our peers. And then there's the fear of consequences, because sometimes there are consequences. Speaking up can change dynamics, it can change the status quo. Sometimes it opens doors and sometimes it closes them. And then there's the very real human fear of what other people might think. Will they still like me? Will I still fit in? Will I be seen as a problem? Will I be punished for making waves? Our brains don't actually distinguish very much between emotional danger and physical danger. So when we feel a social threat, the possibility of rejection or exclusion, our nervous system goes straight into fight or flight. Your heart races, your mind spins, and suddenly staying silent feels like it may be the safest option. When we stay silent, in those moments, something else happens. It's something called cognitive dissonance, and that is the uncomfortable tension when our values say one thing and our actions say another. When we know we should say something, but we don't. And over time, that tension that we experience doesn't disappear. We internalize it. We swallow our voice. And it shows up as frustration, as resentment, and as anxiety. Because every time we silence ourselves, we chip away at our own sense of self-worth. So I want to pause for just a second here, and I want to invite you into a reflection. I want you to just take a breath, take a nice deep breath in, let it out. This was a lot to take in for a couple of minutes. If you're comfortable, just close your eyes for a quick second. I want you to think about a time when you didn't speak up, even though something inside of you told you that you wanted to or you needed to. And I want you to try to recall that moment. What happened? Maybe somebody crossed a boundary. Maybe you had something that felt really important for you to say. Imagine that moment again. How did it feel in your body? What's your body trying to tell you? I want you to open your eyes, and if you're willing, I'd love for you to drop just one word in the chat. How did that moment feel? What was your body trying to tell you? Was it frustrating? Was it heavy? Was it regretful? Was it uncomfortable? I'm seeing anger. Stephanie says run. That's a whole story in itself. Paralyzing, shaking. Here's another question. What was the thing that you wanted to say but didn't? And you don't have to share the whole story by any means, just the bottom line. If you're comfortable, throw it in the chat or write it down on a piece of paper in front of you if that feels better. And then I want you to take that piece of paper after the event today, and I want you to light it on fire safely over a sink. And I want you to release it after today's event ends. And I'm seeing a lot happening in the chat here. I don't deserve this. I'm not renewing this. Stop checking boxes. Here's what I want you to remember today. You are the best advocate that you will ever have. You know your needs, you know your boundaries, and you definitely know that feeling in your gut when something's not right. Your voice matters. Confidence isn't something that you magically wake up with one day. It certainly is not for me. Confidence is a muscle. Taking up space is a muscle. And like any muscle, it gets stronger the more that you practice, especially in moments that feel uncomfortable. One of the most powerful ways to build the confidence you need in order to take up space and use your voice is to intentionally step into the rooms that intimidate you. I'm going to say that one more time. One of the best ways to build the confidence you need to take up space and use your voice is to intentionally step into the rooms that intimidate you. The rooms where that inner critic, that inner dialogue is saying, you don't belong here. And then you open up that door anyway, again and again and again, because every time you do, you prove something to yourself. You belong at the table. There's a reason you're in that room. And the truth is, you can't make an impact by silencing yourself. So today, I want to leave you with one final reflection, and feel free to drop this in the chat if you feel comfortable. Where in your life do you need to take yourself off mute? Maybe it's at work, maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's sharing your ideas more openly, maybe it's setting a boundary that you've been avoiding. Wherever it is, start there. Because every time a woman stands up for herself, something powerful happens. She reminds the women around her that they can do the same. And I want you to know something. Every time you use your voice, every time you take up space, every time you advocate for yourself, we are all cheering for you. We see you, we support you, we celebrate you, and we got you. Women make the world better by doing hard things. So today and every day after this, take up a little more space. Turn up the volume on your voice a little bit more and take yourself off mute. Thank you guys so much for this time and space, and thank you for being exactly who you are. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. That little QR code that you're seeing here takes you to my profile, so feel free to connect with me there. Check out my website. Definitely celebrate this year's class of Women to Watch. If we've got Women to Watch alumni, if we've got this year's recipients, please give yourself a little shout out in the chat so we can congratulate you. Tune into my podcast, Dare to Interrupt. Follow me on Instagram, whatever. However you do it, let's connect. Let's support each other. I see you, I celebrate you, and I got you. Devin,
Courtney,
back to
thank
you.
you so much. Guys, throw an emoji in the chat how Courtney made you feel. We'll do a little round of applause, send some emojis. Courtney, thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for sharing the love. And again, this is why you are world class, world champion, and really a leader in this feminine empowerment space. I hope you all really got something out of that. Just want to make sure if you have any thoughts in your head about how Courtney made you feel about those steps, please just take a moment to write them down. It's always great just to take some time to gather our thoughts. While you do that, I want to share a quick anecdote about how Courtney's message actually helped me get out of a toxic work situation. I had a full-time client that was getting a little toxic for me. There was a lot of negative behavior, boundary crossing, gaslighting, and they are pretty well known in our industry. And sadly, I was afraid to speak up and to say that this wasn't working for me anymore, to not renew my contract because I was afraid of the work ramifications. Like, what if they tell everyone something bad about me? It felt very high school. And, I told Courtney this when we were at an event together. And she said, look, for everyone who badmouths you, I will goodmouth you. For every one person that they tell, I'll find 10 people. And then that other woman will tell that person, and so on and so on. She says it never looks good to badmouth somebody, especially when you have such a strong and powerful network of women who will absolutely go and uplift you. So another anecdote about the strength of Courtney's message. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes as well to share now that Courtney's given us this fantastic permission slip. You could even make one for yourself, a permission slip to take ourselves off mute and to take up space. And now that you're thinking of those moments where you've maybe had yourself on mute or didn't speak up, how do you move forward? So Courtney mentioned being able to get into a room that makes you nervous. I want you to think about how you can flex this muscle. One of the reasons, and Courtney mentioned before, one of the reasons a lot of us don't flex it is a fight or flight response. And I want to address that in terms of fear and what that means for you. So, fight or flight is that anthropological fear helpful moment, which is there might be a bear right there. And if you see a bear, you need to run from it or you need to fight it. But most of us will run from the bear. As we've evolved, fight or flight has stayed with us, but now it triggers for things that are not life threatening, like using your voice, like going into that space. And one of the reasons you may feel that trigger, you may need to work on that muscle, is to start training your fear to understand that this isn't a bear. This isn't a dragon. It's just that you don't know what's going to happen. And when you don't know what's going to happen, that's what triggers the fear. So there's a couple of ways I wanted to share now that we have permission to do it and we understand where some of that trigger comes from, how you can start to get over it. So the first thing is visualization. So even if you haven't taken a step into the room first, your brain will believe what you tell it, right? So if you're doing negative self-talk and I don't belong in there and everything is going to go horribly, that's what's going to happen. But if you're like, I'm going to walk into that room and no one's going to kick me out. I'm going to take a seat at the table. No one's going to kick me out. I'm going to say hello to everyone. No one's going to set me on fire. And just those micro moments of telling your brain the positive things that are going to happen reduces that anthropological fight or flight because you're imagining the outcomes already. So that's a big way to start taking up that space and taking permission is to visualize and tell yourself the positivity, what's going to happen. And that resets your brain to think about, okay, we can reduce the fight or flight. We are the only species on Earth that can ruminate and remember and stay in a fight or flight response. The only creatures who can do that. And what I want to share about that is when you're trying to practice taking up your voice and taking up that space, is to not let fear drive that. So, another way to think about it is physical presence. So, a lot of us, when we're feeling anxious, literally make ourselves smaller and really start to condense ourselves. When you think about the presence you want to take up, to use the muscle, to use your voice, you actually have to physically get taller and bigger and open yourself up. Okay. The confidence that you project is directly correlated to the distance between your earlobe and your shoulder. And I know that sounds really funny, but I want you to think about the visualization of the more nervous you are, the closer your earlobes get to your shoulders, the more confident you are and project, the further that distance. So when you're feeling like you're going to take yourself off mute and use your voice, at the very least, visualize where that gap is. And what you'll notice is that your shoulders will relax. Now, when your shoulders are relaxed, your rib cage opens. When your rib cage opens, you can take a deeper breath. And when you can take that deeper breath, you can calm your vagus nerve, you can calm your mind, you can calm your heart rate. So your physical presence can be practiced to take yourself off mute. The next one is using your voice with intention. So when you take yourself off mute and you do that and you're practicing, even if you're doing it a little bit scared, it's not necessarily about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the clearest person and having the clearest message. Is it well timed? Is it well placed? Does it land harder than a tentative one? So say the thing once, fully, there's a period, and stop. As women, especially, we tend to overshare or over explain or give a lot of conditions before we say something. Well, I just wanted to say this really quick, or this might be a dumb idea, but. So we give conditions to what we're going to say. We make ourselves smaller even when we're using our voice because of that timidity, because of that fear. We have to start to practice the clear and confident delivery of what we would like to say. I'd like to offer another perspective on that. If I could, this is what I think about that moment. Or I need to stop you because we need to address this topic. As in, before you continue, you've crossed a boundary there that I think we need to address before we can have more effective communication. Stop. End. Period. And I think a lot of that goes into the practice, but we have to stop making ourselves small even before we get the words out of our mouth. Even using the word just. I just want to say this. I just wanted to say. You're almost asking permission to use that voice. So these are small things that we can put into practice as we give permission to use the voice and how you do it. The other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of us have different tones of voice. And I want you to think about what your voice sounds like. And if you have a minute, record yourself saying something, even if it's a strong comment or something you wish you could say to someone, record a voice note. Listen to how it sounds when you say it. Because a lot of us, when we get nervous, our voice gets a little high pitched, we talk a little faster, and like I'm not really sure, and so you're projecting, and it's not really super confident. I'm so sorry for even using my voice and taking up space. Or I'd like to offer another perspective on that. I think maybe we might be going in the wrong direction with that project. I'm going to share my perspective. You've crossed a boundary. We need to address that before we have more communication. Slower, deeper, resonant, more sure. So I want you to start to listen to the sound of your voice and know that you can take it down and find that resonant tone. And the best visual I can give you is to listen to Margaret Thatcher. If anyone's heard former Prime Minister of England, Margaret Thatcher has a very unique timbre of her voice. And she worked with a vocal coach because she wasn't being taken seriously in politics because of the sound of her voice, which was very high pitched and kind of nasally. So worked with a vocal coach to find a more resonant tone, which gave her the power, which commanded the attention. And you can look up that story on YouTube and the internet and they will show you. But if you listen to Margaret Thatcher's voice when she's being commanding, you can hear she's come down into a resonant tone in her body. She slows down her voice. She enunciates her words. And it really helps you find that command. And the last thing that I'll share with you when you're thinking about using that muscle and the give to gain philosophy is give voice to others so that you can claim your own. When you amplify someone else's voice, you then also establish yourself as someone who holds space. So I want to share that again. When you amplify someone else's voice, you also establish yourself as someone who holds space. And that's real power and real leadership. I think when we can start to understand that our success is not pie, if you give some success to someone, it doesn't mean less success for you. When we listen to each other's voices and messages in dissenting opinions, in validating each other, in challenging each other, and giving the space to others, we are being, we are taking the power and the space that we need to be more assertive in using our voices and practicing those muscles. So I really want you to take a moment and I want you to write down, and if you can, use this antiquated thing called a pen, and this is called paper. And I know that, I might as well be asking you to use the papyrus and the scroll, but write it down. What's one promise? Thanks, Tammy. 40-year-olds use pens, guys. I want you to take a moment and I want you to write it down. And the reason I'm asking you to write it down is because by physically writing something, you're telling your brain it's important. And we need to start now that we're learning, now that you've gotten a fresh perspective from Courtney, to put it into practice, you need to tell your brain that this is important. So I want you to write down, if you can, one promise you're going to make to yourself about how you plan to use your voice in the next week, in the next month, in that next meeting. Even if it's, I promise to say 5 words in that meeting. And hold yourself accountable. And better yet, if you have a buddy, accountability buddies, and you verbalize that to someone, you've doubled down on the wiring that tells your brain that this is important. So the more you put yourself in those spaces, how you visualize your success, how you find the tone and resonant of your success, how you lift others up for your own success, not in a selfish way, but rising tide raises all boats. These 3 things are something that you can put into practice constantly to give yourself a foundation, to take yourself off of mute, to raise up your own voice, and to raise the voices of others. Give you a minute. And while you're writing that down, it's my absolute pleasure to start to introduce the next absolute powerhouse, woman who not only takes up space, she breaks space down, world champion. So our next speaker brings a significantly powerful perspective on what it truly means to take space, especially in moments of pressure. Laura Armstrong is the creator of the Empowerment Protocol and a globally recognized empowerment and leadership expert who helps organizations build confident, accountable, and high performing teams. Laura is a 3-time world champion martial artist and empowerment self defense specialist. Laura has spent decades studying how people respond under pressure and how leadership can either silence or strengthen the voices within a team. Her work focuses on helping people move from hesitation to clarity, from burnout to ownership, and from shrinking back to fully stepping into their capability. Tonight, Laura is going to guide us in exploring what it means to claim space with intention, clarity, and confidence. Please welcome 3-time champion, badass, Miss Laura Armstrong.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm just so excited to be here. I love this group, and Devin, what great reflection, as women, and as I can speak for getting older, like I really think about a lot of those things now, where as yet, when I was younger, I used to just jump in and see what happened. I mean, sometimes I reflect on the fact that I'm still alive and haven't died from something I did at some point, right? So I did a lot of crazy stuff, and I was willing to break a lot of rules and be seen and heard and judged and all that good stuff because, I mean, it broke me down so many times, but it also built me up so much stronger that it doesn't really even bother me anymore. I got to the point where people's opinions are just that, their opinions, and there's nothing I can do to influence any of that, but I can just show up as myself. And that work takes time. It takes time and it takes effort and it takes self-acceptance. And that's why I love groups like this, because all of that support is there for you to make that happen for yourself. And when Connie and I were talking about what to speak about for this session, I wanted to give you something super impactful that you can take home, start doing right away, and creating the world for yourself that you really want to live in for yourself, who you are, what being yourself means to you. And so I did a talk around the theme of redefining leadership, boundaries, and belonging, because most people think those things are separate conversations, and they're actually not. They're deeply connected. And because you cannot lead well if you don't know how to hold a boundary, you cannot create belonging if people don't feel safe. And the key word here is feeling safe. You can't give back in a meaningful and sustainable way if you're exhausted, if you're resentful, if you're overextended, if you're quietly disappearing underneath the weight of everyone else's needs. Is there anybody in that room who's lived that space? I'm willing to bet there is, right? And we think it's normal. It's not. Our normal state as human beings is a state of joy. But how often have we really been in that state? And when you are in that state, people pull you out of it or down into it unknowingly a lot of the time. For example, well, why are you in such a good mood? Are you on drugs? Right? Like, so there's that, right? Like, and then you're dealing with that. You can't even be in that state because it's not normal. So today I want to talk about those three words differently, not as buzzwords, not as theory, because I hear a lot of this and not a lot of action. So I love that action is going to be a piece of the work that we do today, but as practical, powerful tools for how we lead, how we live, and how we create stronger cultures, stronger relationships, but most importantly, stronger outcomes, because if we don't do anything, nothing happens. So I work in the two businesses I work in, the Empowerment Protocol and Wealth Mastery. I see the same patterns again and again. And the pattern is that people are capable, they're talented, they're heart-led, they want to do well. They want better for themselves. But so often when they're trying to leave, serve, succeed from a place, they're trying to succeed from a place of pressure instead of power. And it's so funny because Devin just brought that up. I just recently got divorced in the last 6-8 months, and I didn't realize how much my ex was taking a little bit of my power here and there until I had lost a lot of it. Now I pulled it all back, but we give it away because we think that's something that's going to help someone else. It's giving it to help. It's giving it to serve. But actually, when we're holding on to our own power, we can give so much more. And that changes everything. So let's start with leadership. Most people grow up with a very distorted idea of what leadership is. They think leadership means being the strongest person in the room, having the answers, carrying everybody else, staying composed no matter what. I got this. I'm sucking today, but I'm still going to do it. I got to show up for everyone. Does that sound familiar to anybody? I know I've been on that train. So, and somehow doing it all without ever letting anyone see or know what the pressure is. That's not leadership. That's exhaustion in a nice outfit. So it looks good, but inside it's all rotten, right? And it's not feeling good. Real leadership isn't about control. It's not about over functioning, and it's definitely not about quietly burning yourself out while trying to keep everybody else comfortable. This I see in so many women over and over again. How do I pull them out of that? And I've become really good at that. Real leadership is the ability to stay grounded when pressure rises. I remember when I was competing in international competition, I remember the turning point of when I became a really good fighter. And I'll tell you what it was. I started taking myself out of the fight and watching what the other person was doing. And I gained this ability to realize what they were going to do before they were even going to do it. So I could counter that and come at them with something else I know they didn't know how to deal with. And that's why I started winning more, being a better fighter, taking those skills I learned and transferring them into my life and my business. So it's the ability, leadership, to respond instead of react. So I waited and then I would move. I didn't wait for them to hit me. I waited for them to actually take action and then I would move. So it's the ability to create clarity where everyone else is caught in the confusion, right? I always know an experienced fighter from a new fighter. They're waiting till they get hit and they respond, or something happens and then they respond. Experienced fighters watch and then they respond. So this is one of the core things that I teach through what I do, because one of the biggest problems I see in leadership, whether it's in a company, a family, a team, or a community, it's not lack of intelligence, it's reactivity. So when people are stressed, overwhelmed, or dysregulated, they tend to do one of three things. They go into over control, they go into shutdown, or they lash out. Do any of us resonate with any of those? And the thing is, none of those create trust. None of those create safety. And trust is the currency of leadership. So when I talk about redefining leadership, I mean this. So like, to put it simply, leadership isn't about who speaks the loudest or who can stay clear when things get hard. It's about who can hold the room without escalating the room. If you notice when Connie speaks, she does it at a tone where you actually have to lean in to hear what she says. I don't know if she does it consciously, but it's kind of genius. It's those pauses, the one I just gave you there, so that you're looking for the next thing that I'm saying. So leadership is when you can say, let's slow this down a minute, let's get clear, and let's respond well. That's leadership, not performance, not pressure, not presence. Actually, it is presence, I shouldn't say that. But it's presence in a way that feels grounded. Because when leaders are grounded, people feel it. When I go out and I teach like into corporate or into a self-defense class, and some of you were in that with me when we did that, I set the container for the room. I set it so strong with agreements that people can really be authentic in themselves and just be present. Because I think a lot of the time, we want to put on a face that looks good. We want to do good. We want to help, but it doesn't feel aligned inside. So when calm spreads, clarity spreads, and safety spreads. So what are you spreading? The second thing I want to talk about today is boundaries. It's probably one of my favorite subjects. I used to be the best boundary crosser I know a long time ago. I still do it a little bit, but I've also become really good at setting boundaries, because boundaries have one of the worst reputations of any word that I know. So the moment you say boundary, people get nervous. They're like, conflict, rejection, discomfort, selfishness, people pushing away. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are clarity. They let people know what matters, what's acceptable, what your responsibility is, and what your responsibility is not. And without boundaries, leadership gets very messy very quickly. Okay. Resentment builds, communication gets blurry, overgiving becomes normal, and people begin leaking energy everywhere. Has anyone leaked energy? It's exhausting. This is true in business, it's true in leadership, and it's absolutely true in money and how we live our lives every single day. I'll give you a good example. I recently worked at I think it was the auto show. I was working at the auto show, and I was working directly with some of the security, and the gentleman who ran the security was an older man in his 80s. And I came up to him to ask him a question. As I approached him, he looked up at me. He says, "Hey, sexy." And I said, in my mind, I'm like, that's interesting. I didn't react. I asked him what I needed to. I had to have time with him to take deposits to the bank. So we had a car ride together. And I'm like, I'm not going to let this go. And so I sat in the car and I'm like, do you remember the other day when I came up to you and you said, "Hey, sexy"? I said, "I want to talk to you about something. This is bothering me." And he's like, "Oh, I don't remember that." I knew he remembered. And I said, "Well, I remember because it affected me." And you can get in a lot of trouble saying that to somebody. That's not okay. "Oh, well, I talk to my daughter. I call her Munchkin, even though she's tall. So I don't really remember that." And I said, "Well, I want you to let you know that I remembered and it's not okay. And so that you don't do it to someone else in the future who can't speak up about it." And then he brushed it off. But I know he didn't brush it off. He heard me, right? So many people struggle because they're not lazy or incapable. They struggle because they don't have boundaries around a lot of things. And lazy can be like a mean word, but it's more like unmotivated. So they don't have boundaries around time, energy, their value, the pricing of what they offer in their business, pricing of what's important to them in their life, their availability. They'll just work back to back to back to back. And what they'll continue to tolerate without setting boundaries around it. That's a big deal too. So if you're constantly over delivering, undercharging, over explaining, saying yes when every part of your nervous system is screaming no, that's not generosity. That's self-abandonment, and that's expensive. And yeah, it's expensive money-wise, but it's costing you your peace, your confidence, your energy, your leadership credibility. So when I say that boundaries are powerful, I mean this. Boundaries are one of your highest forms of stewardship to take care of yourself. They protect your capacity. They protect your values and your relationships, and they protect your ability to give from a place of overflow instead of depletion. How do you think that would feel? Wouldn't that be a good change? That matters, because giving back is beautiful. But giving back when you're chronically drained, resentful, or overextended, that's not sustainable. That's just draining. So boundaries make service sustainable, and they make leadership sustainable. They make success sustainable. So having boundaries, it's a gift. It's a gift to yourself, and it's a gift to others. And don't let anybody else tell you differently. The third thing I'm going to cover today, I'm trying to keep within my time here because I like to be on time, is belonging. This is a big one, especially for women. So this is the part that touches people directly and deeply, because every single person knows what it feels like to want to belong. I went through this yesterday. So I belong to this private wine club. Oh my God, I love wine so much, but that's another subject. But they had this women's networking night. And I love networking, but I'm an extroverted introvert. So I can be around people, but I have a limited time offer on that. And I'm not comfortable with people I don't really know. It's an effort for me, right? So the truth here is many people have confused belonging with fitting in. Those are different things. I really had to make an effort to get to know those people. Once I did, we were good, right? So let's talk about the difference between belonging and fitting in. Fitting in says, Courtney touched on this, which is why I'm so glad I get to talk more about it here, is fitting in is shrinking and adjusting yourself. Don't make anyone uncomfortable. Perform what's acceptable. Fit in what's the norm. Belonging says, you're safe enough to be honest here. You're valued here. You matter here. You don't have to disappear to be accepted. You can just choose to be. This is very different. Now, when I work in empowerment with organizations and teach ESD, this is why psychological safety is such a big part of the work, because people can't truly belong where they don't feel safe. I did a lot of work on myself to feel safe, and not just on the surface stuff, the deep stuff. I would have to talk to my cells in my body. This feels safe, Laura. It's okay. You can step in, and get my cells to be on board with this whole thing, right? Like, it's crazy, but I did all this crazy stuff that works. So when people don't feel safe, they don't bring their best. They become guarded. They become quiet. They become defensive or disconnected. Has anybody encountered anybody like that? Put it in the chat. And then we wonder why there's conflict, disengagement, poor communication, why people are in trauma, why there's low trust, and people quietly opting out. The most painful one of all, when everything gets closed. Belonging isn't emotional, it's operational. You need it to function as a human being. It affects your trust, your collaboration, your communication, all the things we're doing here today. Performance, creativity, culture. And on a personal, belonging matters just as much, because there's so many people that are still trying to earn belonging through perfection, through productivity, overachievement, overgiving, and being whoever everyone else needs them to be, showing up as someone else so they fit in. That's not belonging. That's not belonging, everybody. That's survival. Belonging begins when you stop leaving yourself in order to be accepted by everybody else. I would go into these rooms, and I would, a lot of it, I was the first in women. I mean, as a commodities trader, I was the first woman on the trading desk in our company. I mean, I did everything wrong all the time, but I didn't care, right? Because if I was going to be anything less than myself, I mean, gotta, I don't understand why I wasn't fired like 5 times. But if I can't show up as myself and make mistakes, then why am I not there? And I had to bring those people on board with the way I was, not fitting into the way they were. So this is why boundaries are part of belonging, and this is why leadership is part of belonging. It all relates together because the strongest leaders in the room are not the ones who dominate the room. They're the ones who create the room where other people can breathe, people like Connie and the other speakers who have shown up today. Now, I want to talk about giving back. It's my last section and probably the most important. Let's bring this into the part I care deeply about, giving back, because giving back sounds beautiful, and it is. But I think it has to be redefined because people, a lot of time when I talk about that, they're like, oh yeah, I'm a good giver. I like to give, especially women, they're massive givers. But receiving, not so good a lot of the time. Those two need to be balanced for things to move. So I think giving back has to be redefined a little bit because many people have been taught that giving back means overextending, rescuing people, carrying the load, saying yes to everything, and proving their worth through how much they can hold for other people. That's not healthy giving. That's unsustainable service. Keyword there, unsustainable. True giving comes from alignment. If you are in your genius, it took me a while to get in my genius. I love living there because I know absolutely everything I do is aligned for me. It comes from being so grounded in your own leadership and your own boundaries and your own sense of belonging that what you offer comes from strength, not depletion. So to finish up here a little bit, don't move from guilt, move from purpose. Empower people. Don't overfunction for them. And this is what I love the most about the work that I do. To help people become so clear, so grounded, so empowered that they can create real impact without losing themselves in the process. Because the truth is, the world doesn't need more exhausted leaders. It doesn't need more people quietly abandoning themselves while trying to be everything for everybody. It needs people who can lead with clarity, hold boundaries with grace, and create belonging with courage. So what I want to leave with you today are 3 simple things that you can take with you. The first is this. Ask yourself, where am I reacting instead of leading in my life? Because awareness is always the first step here. Okay, that's the first thing. Where am I reacting instead of leading? The second one is identify one boundary that would immediately strengthen your life. Maybe it's around time, energy, a conversation you need to have, something you need to stop tolerating. And the third one is create one moment of belonging for someone this week. See someone, really see them, hear them, listen to them, value them. The last thing I'll leave you with before I finish off is leadership's not about control. It's about grounded response. Boundaries are not rejection. They're clarity and stewardship. And belonging is not fitting in. It's safety, it's truth, and it's value. And most importantly, remember, we create spaces where people can truly thrive because we don't just create better leaders, we create better cultures. And that's what this is all about. And I just want to thank you so much for being able to participate today. I love all of you. Thank you.
Wow, Laura, thank you so much. Everyone, a round of applause. Send your emojis up, your reactions. That was absolutely fantastic. Just want to for all of us to get some of these points from Laura. Healthy giving versus unsustainable service. Wow. I think for the one I was thinking of, like really gonna focus on that one. Thank you for telling us about leadership, about boundaries being a gift, and of course looking at belonging as operational because we need to have our belonging to operate. So Laura, I'm gonna let you hang out in the chat for a little bit. I know some of you may have questions. And of course, if you look at Laura's upper right, upper left, depending on what direction you're looking. That's how you connect with Laura on LinkedIn. So make sure you go ahead and connect with her. So, next up, it is my absolute pleasure to start to introduce our one and only ally in the room, the fox in the hen house, our master strategist, getting ready. So one of the things I love most about Donnie is his frank way of speaking and strong beliefs. So our next speaker, Mr. Donnie, reminds us that support is not only emotional, but it's structural, it's strategic, and it's financial, which I love. Donnie, I loved hearing from you before we came on this call, so I really think it's going to be such a wonderful share for you. So for those of you who don't know, Donnie is a wealth strategist, speaker, and author of Get Wealth Up. I think he has a copy of his book. You go ahead and take a look at that. But Donnie is known for helping individuals and families. There it is. Helping individuals and families build wealth with clarity, intention, and confidence. Donnie has a background in business systems, consulting, and real estate investment and development. Donnie brings a practical and accessible approach to wealth building, helping people move beyond uncertainty and into ownership of their financial future. His work focuses his work focuses on creating systems that allow wealth to grow sustainably, quietly, and with purpose. So tonight, Donnie's going to share how building wealth is not about guesswork. It's about creating certainty that supports the life that you are designing. Everyone, please help me in welcoming Donnie Mangos.
Thank you, Devin. Hey, everybody. Thank you. It's an honor to be among you all. Thank you, Connie, for inviting me to speak tonight. And Laura, fantastic job as well, as always. You know what? There's a few themes that you had. Well, Devin, you mentioned uncertainty and fear.
Mhm.
Laura, you mentioned calm. And the truth is, what I'll be talking about right now is it really bridges all that together um, magically. And that's what we're all here to capture. And in the spirit of giving and gaining. My give in my talk is not going to be about giving back or even giving forward. It's going to be about giving yourself. And the gift that I want you to give yourself is going to be certainty. Because I think if you're in a space where you are calm and when you know what to expect and you know what's going on, well, you get to clear through the noise. You can go and do things and live your life and enjoy the moment, which I think all of us in this room probably struggle with a lot. Is just enjoying that moment. So through the next 10, 15 minutes, Devin, I'm hoping to really share, and I'll be funny and engaging with you guys at just how I see how finance plays a role in all of that. And
I
I'm
know we're
going to
super
pull,
excited to hear it, Donnie. So
thank
thank you
you.
for this extra wisdom.
Thank you. Well, okay, let's do this. Let's play a little bit of a game here. So I tend to daydream. It happens. My focus might sometimes wanes. And I often go to a place where, like, if I can go back in time and knowing what I know now, could I go back in time and profit from that? And maybe I'd be in a different place right now. Maybe I'd be on an island right now. Who else has done that where you thought, yeah, I'll go back in time? Of course. And then do stuff like maybe I'd buy Bitcoin, in 2007, or maybe I would buy Apple stock, whatever. Yeah. And that would be the key to accumulating wealth. And not just for a spreadsheet, because who cares? Like the numbers on a spreadsheet don't mean much. It's what that does for you when it providing you the freedom, giving you freedom. And wealth happens to be that conduit. Like we live in a capitalist world. We live in North America. For better or worse, we are tied to living a life that money is needed to fund. So let's talk about it like through that lens. So if we can go back in time, I'm sure we'd all do those things to increase the wealth. And it turns out we actually know somebody who did this. And it is a good strategy. It's actually pretty magical. So he's my financial mentor. Now, he's not real. It is fiction. And you're mentioning age in this group, you're talking about people being in their 40s. Well, I'm nearly out of those. But there's a lot of Gen Xers in this room. Who's seen Back to the Future? Who remembers Back to the Future? Of course. So you remember Marty McFly was always hounded by that one butthead Biff, who rightfully ends up in a pile of manure in part one. Well, that same Biff is our mentor, and I'll explain why. So in part two, if you remember, Biff from the future goes back in time and he gives himself an almanac. He gives himself a book and says to himself, his younger self, use this information. You know what's going to happen. Go use this to build wealth, to accumulate riches, and get everything you want in life. You get the girl, you get the buildings, you get the fame, all that stuff. All you got to do is follow this plan. Now, so for those of you that don't know, the Almanac is a book that talks about all the sporting events from the past that have happened, who won the game, all that kind of stuff. So all Biff from the past needs to do is just follow along with that, execute, and he'll get everything he needs in life. No research, no guidance, no financial advisors, no internet, no brokerage. Just do this. Like what a pretty cool way to build wealth. We had this since 1985. We knew about this, but it's not what we do. And because of that, we go through this anxiety riddled way of accumulating wealth. Stop me if it sounds familiar. But many of us here are either entrepreneurs or you're an employee, and you earn this. This is how much money you earn. Okay, however you bring it in. Fantastic. But we're in Canada or the United States, some of us here, and we pay taxes. So before we get to see all of our money, we've got to reduce it by what we're paying in income taxes. From there, if you got kids like I do, mortgage, house or rent, car payments, school, all that stuff, we're bringing this thing down to this little bit left. And whatever we do with the leftovers here, that's all we've got. We try and do something with that to grow it. So we try and save it, might even try to invest it. And what we're hoping for is that little leftover that we're putting in away, we're trying to build that into a big number through investing, doing this over the years. And some years we have leftovers and some years we don't. And some years when we're putting our money into investments, it might work out. It also might not. We don't know. Going back to uncertainty, Devin, that's uncertain. And what I've come to realize is if that's financial planning, then all financial planning is hope-based. We're hoping the market cooperates. We're hoping Trump doesn't say anything to, destabilize the world. We're hoping wars don't happen or don't continue. We're hoping we pick winners. We're hoping there's no down years. We're hoping that we do enough of this over the years that we can have a really big pile when we're ready to retire. And we're also hoping that we don't have just that much and we live beyond that means and we outlive our money. So much hope. Yeah, I completely agree, Connie. There's just so much hope. Now, when I look to my buddy Biff, and he's looking down on me saying, "Why waste time? What are you doing to yourself here?" Biff wouldn't do it this way. Biff knows the way to do this is just use certainty to produce what it is that you want from life, even in this wealth space. So it brings you to the next phase of this. Certainty. How do we achieve certainty? Think about this. For those of you that have a mortgage, or even if you're renting, we all work with contracts. In some way, shape, or form, if you got a cell phone, you've got a contract. And what that contract is doing is making promises. And oftentimes we're the ones making payments in those contracts to somebody else. We are contributing to someone else's cash flow, someone else's revenue. We are their income source under contract. So this works. These mega companies, they're not taking risks or gambling. They're putting us under contract and creating an income stream from us via contracts. And I find that interesting because contracts create certainty because they're creating obligation. So contracts are obligating somebody to do something. The obligation you can bank on certainty. Well, if contracts can create certainty, can I create a financial almanac, kind of like how Biff did it? Why can't I just figure out what I want from life, put that in a nice little bucket? These are all the things that I want from my life in my future. And say, okay, I love this. I'm going to put it under contract and have someone else agree to deliver that under contract. If I can do that, I don't need to worry about investing or hoping. I can use certainty. to create the outcomes that I want. This is not theoretical. This is businesses use this strategy to make money. There's a lot of people in my space where I exist that are using the strategy to build wealth. It's just not common. There's a lot of people that have a lot to gain from us not thinking like this, from us continuing to live like children in school, being taught to be obedient. We're being obedient in this financial space as well. RSPs, 401ks. And if you know that's how you prepare for your retirement. But what if you don't? Then you're kind of ridiculed. Well, naturally, you should be contributing to that. Who says? And why? Why do I have to invest in these things? Why do I have to take risks like this? If I don't like risks, why am I obligated to do it that way? It's because the financial engine that's surrounding us all, wants us, needs us to feed that system. Brokerages, ads, banks, governments. It all works this way. So I just think I wanted to share today giving the gift of certainty. I'm telling you from experience, this is actually what I do for careers. You can build what you want from life financially through contracts. You can make wealth building someone else's obligation to deliver for you. Working with a client, and so he's an entrepreneur, and he was bringing in decent money. So he actually pretty decent money, and he just couldn't sleep at night, watching his investments go up and down. He's got less hair than I do, by the way. And he struggles. He has the high highs and the low lows. He might cancel a vacation if it's a bad market because he doesn't feel like he can sustain. And he bought a Porsche when things were really good. That's not a way to live. That's just speaking of boundaries. That's setting his boundaries are out of whack. They're not in line with what's happening. He just could not be the best version of himself. He couldn't show up for clients when the markets were terrible. He couldn't show up for his family when markets were terrible. It's just not a sustainable model. When we switched him into thinking more along the lines of what I'm sharing with you guys in a financial almanac of sorts, he doesn't care what's happening in the market. It doesn't even matter. His results will come because they're under obligation to come. It's as simple as that. So I just wanted you I wanted to share that there is a different way to approach how you're going to build wealth. You don't need to follow this hope-based plan that seemingly is the only way. It's not. It's not. If you're going to gain, you got to give yourself the gift of certainty to consider that there's a possibility that you could gain that wonderful future without having to take all the anxiety and worry from a hope-based strategy. So what I do is I'm an architect of these contracts, and there are a few ways to do it. Some of them are expensive, and those are the ones that probably work the worst, but it's entirely achievable. And my gift to everyone today is if you want to learn more about, one-on-one, is because it will involve a discussion with you and very private discussion about money and finances and things like that. No obligation whatsoever. But if you wanted to have a chat with somebody who understands this and can explain in more detail, somewhere in that image of mine behind me, you'll see a little gift box. In that QR code is both a digital version of this that I'll send to you if you wanted to read it on your iPad, and a free 30-minute session with yours truly if you wanted to have a discussion like that. As a dad of two teenage daughters, you all are inspiring, and I will probably replay this recording for my daughters to watch as well, and just know that they do have that voice and they do have permission to speak up. So thank you all for being here.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm actually scanning your code right now, Donnie. So I was like, wait, I need certainty with Donnie time. So everyone take your 2 seconds, get your Donnie time settled. So Donnie, real quick, before you go, I know that you also have dad duty tonight for your fantastic two teenage girls, which is life, to go pick them up. But I wanted to kick off some questions with you. I like this idea that like wealth provides freedom, but we're really uncertain about what to do with it. Can you help us reframe our thinking a little bit more into that wealth confidence, wealth strategist space to, I think, even allow us to believe that as women we can change what we know about money and finances and achieve wealth that we might be envisioning? Like these two things can exist at the same time.
Sure. So I think wealth is intimidating for the most part. And often last night I was in a client's kitchen. She's a doctor, and when we talk about wealth, and she's comfortable speaking about it openly with me, but she's embarrassed about the results of what she's achieved or where she is financially. Family, she's got 4 kids, family, house, all that kind of stuff, and doesn't feel like she's anywhere near the end. There's no plan to get to the end. And it's just so overwhelming with so many options.
Hmm.
And you always feel like you're behind. Um, and it's because we're trying to fall in line with what we expect of ourselves and what we think everyone else expects of us. And the way I approach it is probably a bit differently than most. I don't I don't think, much like Laura, I don't think you need to fall in line with anybody else's rules. I think there are
Hmm.
ways you can achieve the results that you want without complication and with all that. If you just are open to asking the right questions, meeting the right people, and learning.
That's fantastic. Does anyone else have a question for Donnie? We have a couple more minutes. I know we have another one that I got from your notes. So Donnie, you also mentioned earlier that you really believe strongly, and I love your passion about this, about financial literacy. What do you think most women miss in our financial education? And we talked about presence, we talked about boundaries. Like oftentimes it's like, really old school gender roles where like the man manages the money and you manage the household. And we're not really introduced to this concept of financial literacy. Could you tell us like what is one thing we're missing? What is one thing that you found really common that we can start to read about as well as we connect with you more and start to re-educate or educate ourselves?
Right. So I think a good baseline is important. Financial literacy is important, but I do think that a lot of information is biased because a lot of the publications are written by people who want you to know what they know so that you feel compelled to work with their tools and their
Mhm.
ideas. And it's all based on the same thing about managing taxes, which is complicated. What picking winners, um,
Mhm.
buckets. There's all kinds of strategies around how you're gonna figure out what money means. And because it's so overwhelming, I think it's just information overload, and it makes it difficult to start. I would say, and again, this is not because I wrote this, but I do talk about like just intro level the things in the very beginning of this book, and I'm happy to like it's a free download for you guys if you're interested in reading about it. If you want something centralized in this kind of voice, it's there where I just talk about here's what's going on and here's how this stuff works. Very, very conversational. I believe in knowledge is the answer to everything. Knowledge is the answer, and knowledge is power. And in somebody who's trying to educate again 2 teenage daughters, my role is help them figure out how they're gonna get by, how they're gonna have a good life, how they're gonna
Mhm.
continue to be able to go on vacation beyond their 20s, because it's not as simple as saying you're going to do it. So
Mhm.
it involves understanding how to earn, the value of that, translating it to the effort involved to earning it, and using it that way. So I think constantly learning, constantly researching, constantly reading, listening to different opinions, different websites, different YouTube videos is a good start.
Mhm.
That said, I know I get what you're saying. It's really complicated and there's
Yeah.
just so much out there. I wish I had an easy answer about how to get started in financial literacy. Tomorrow night, I am speaking at um, an inner city kids club for teenagers, and I'm struggling with that as well. How do I help these kids understand what financial literacy means? And my plan tomorrow is just going to be helping them understand how money comes in, income, and how money goes out, expenses, and
Mhm.
helping them figure out how to manage that at its simplest level. Just when money's coming in, you can't spend more than you have, otherwise you're going to be using tomorrow's income to pay for a past thing. I got to start with this, and then I'm just going to go back to how do I bring in more income? And what I'm going to say to them is what I say to my kids in life. If you want to, if you want to create wealth, if you want that to find its way into your life, you need to go and help others solve problems. You need to help solve their problems. And the bigger the problem you solve, the more wealth will find its way to you somehow, some way. Go and create value in the world. And with that, it will bring in you, if you want what you want out of life, go help someone else get what they want from life. It's kind of along the same lines in that mantra. So go create value, and the bigger the problem that you solve, the bigger the reward um, from the universe, somehow, some way.
I love that. And I love that you're bringing your message to another generation. I as a mom of a little one, mine is 8. She has no concept of money anymore because she doesn't actually have money. It's like so they said that the Gen Alphas and like some of the Gen Zs are going to be the worst generations with finances that we've ever seen because it's all about invisible digital spending.
Yeah,
So they're like the
totally.
first generation of totally digital spend. Whereas, some of our like Gen Xers, millennials, and I know we have like, our boomer parents where it's like when you had money, it was in your wallet. Like as it was always cash, you knew exactly what it was going out and you knew how to pay it. And I remember mom balancing her checkbook. But this idea of it's just invisible. It might as well be play money because it's all just in the ether. So I love that you're trying to bring that very basic, like there's income and expenses, and you have to manage them and balance them. And I think from a very young age, a lot of us just don't get that education on and understanding how to
Yeah,
balance that out.
absolutely agree. I mean, I see my daughter's friends, um, they're disinterested in creating value. They're not. It's not as flashy as the next video on TikTok, and so it's a difficult for that generation. It's going to be a difficult pull.
Yeah.
It was always difficult, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult for these ones here. They're just less. They're not as interested. So it's on us to try and figure out ways to make it relevant and make it meaningful to them. And so I'm up for the challenge. I hope my kids are. I hope you are as well.
Absolutely. Well, I think we can all promise to do our best. Donnie, thank you so much for being
Thank you.
with us. And I hope you have a good evening, girl dad, with your youngins. So thank you so much for making time to be with us. I know you have to jump and go grab them. So everyone, let's thank Donnie one more time. And then the QR code for our free gift is in the chat now. So if Donnie disappears, we'll still be able to connect and get your gift, which is his book and the free 30 minutes. So thank you so much. And if you have questions, make sure you go grab him on LinkedIn.
Yes, and huge thank you, Donnie, for stepping up, being our ally um, on International Women's Day and month. And I think also what became a big aha moment for me is your story about your client being a doctor. And we assume certain titles and positions, they're well off, they have a big home, they have these responsibilities. But as we chip away and we look at our bottom profit and loss statement, you can say, it was like, I'm not where I need to be. And I think being honest with that and being vulnerable with that and being able to share that with someone they can trust, like someone like you, Donnie, I think is huge. And that's probably the first step in realizing and understanding and gaining our financial literacy is speaking with an expert and being honest of where we are right now, what are gaps in terms of our understanding, and how do we take that level up so that we can actually be more proactive in how we manage our money and our wealth. So, Donnie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, I hope you all have started to enjoy our event. And we want to thank again Courtney and Laura and Donnie so much for bringing their fantastic wisdom. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for giving your time and treasure. And thank you so much for investing in yourself this evening or this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Every time that you invest in moments like this, you're investing in yourself and reclaiming your joy, reclaiming your voice, and of course, reclaiming your power. The other thing I will ask you all to do is to share this recording session with someone who you think may enjoy it. And then, of course, to repost somewhere with your commitment and just sharing it. There's a lot of ways for you to support other women in your community. especially if you have an opportunity to like introduce someone to a decision maker, to connect someone with a mentor, to connect someone with a friend, to connect someone with like, hey, I saw this book and I thought of you. Just take a moment to connect with someone else in your orbit and give that power, because that's what give to gain is to connect, in that philosophy to as you invest in others, you get to invest in yourself. Thank you so much for her seat at the table, and Connie for having me as your host and MC for this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, and my QR code is right there. It was an absolute pleasure, and I hope to be able to see so many of you around the interwebs, around our networks, around our industry, and it's been a great pleasure. So, Connie, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Devin. And I'm going to jump right into one of my micro joys is actually taking a selfie moment. But those who stay around at the very end. So if you're able to turn your camera on, please do. If not, don't worry. I'm going to count 3, 2, 1 with a big smile. And I'm going to do the little snapshot. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Truly, I feel really, really blessed that so many of you have decided to spend your evening with us today. And thank you for each and every one of you who has also contributed a small donation towards her seat at the table. I honestly didn't know how many people would show up. I know last year we did a pretty big event in person. It was a huge investment, a lot of resources, a lot of great partners and support. But we decided that we want to make sure we have opportunity to reach more people that are not just in Toronto. So that's why we went virtual this year, along with many other reasons. But I'm just extremely and grateful and thank you to every one of you. From an International Women's Day perspective and the theme of give and gain, everything that each of the speakers spoke about, I kept raising my hand. I'm like, I'm still in that journey of like transition, of finding myself, finding my voice. And like Laura said, I don't speak at the loudest volume, but I speak loud enough that you can hear me, but intentionally enough for you to lean in. And I hope whatever volume you need to speak at, you are being you. You don't have to scream to be heard. Um, and if there's titles that is given to you, take it, own it. I'm like, yeah, I'm that person that speaks at a certain volume. But I think if anything at all, the gift that Donnie gave, it's probably personally one of my biggest aha moments financially is like, how do we feel confident enough about what we are gaining for ourselves so that we can give back into our future? So there's many topics. And if there's ever any time that anyone has any questions or concerns or continued gaps that you might have, please feel free to share that with me. And I'll continue to look for speakers and experts that we can bring to our future Ask Her Anything experiences, and definitely partner with Tammy because she's got amazing speakers as part of her agency as well to kind of bring some thought leadership and support to our community. With that note, it is 7 o'clock. We can wrap it up, and I'm going to stay around. I'm going to open a couple rooms. If you want to stay and network, we can do that. If you want to sign off because you have to go, just going to say thank you for being here and being part of our community. All right.